What happens when Hollywood's ultimate nice guy finally hits his breaking point? When years of silence about industry corruption and media spin explode in a single unforgettable moment on live television? What happens when Keanu Reeves, the serene, thoughtful actor everyone knows and loves, decides he's done being misrepresented? Today, you're about to witness one of the most jaw-dropping moments in daytime TV history. A confrontation so intense, it ends with a veteran host walking off her own show. Trust me, you won't see this coming. Stay tuned, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments, because this story will make you question everything you thought you knew about live television and the hidden power plays behind the scenes. The set of The View hummed with its usual pre-show energy. Joy Behar sat at her familiar table, shuffling notes, while production assistants darted around, making last-minute adjustments. Today's guest? Keanu Reeves. Or at least, he was supposed to be the easiest interview of the week. A soft, feel-good segment to promote his latest film. A bit of levity to balance the week's heavier political discussions. "Ladies, we're live in 30 seconds, called the floor manager. Joy straightened in her chair, flashing her practiced, confident smile as the cameras rolled. "Welcome back to The View. I'm here with the incredibly talented Keanu Reeves, starring in what I'm sure will be another action-packed blockbuster. Keanu, thank you for joining us." Keanu nodded politely, hands folded in his lap. "Thank you for having me, Joy. So, tell us about this new movie." Then came the question that hung in the air like a challenge. "At your age, aren't you getting tired of all these stunts? When are you going to settle down and do some real acting? Something more mature?" Keanu's expression didn't change. At first, but a subtle shift in posture hinted that something was stirring beneath his calm exterior. "Well, Joy, physical storytelling has always been part of cinema. The stunts serve the narrative. They're not just spectacle." Joy waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, please. We both know these action movies are just mindless entertainment for teenage boys. Don't you want to challenge yourself with something more sophisticated? Something with substance?" Keanu's voice stayed measured, but a quiet edge crept in. "I think you're making some assumptions about both the films and the audiences. These stories often explore themes like justice, sacrifice, and redemption. They're not as shallow as you're suggesting." Joy leaned forward, clearly relishing the chance to push back. "Come on, Keanu. You basically play the same character over and over, the strong, silent type who solves everything with violence. Don't you think Hollywood has enough of that toxic masculinity?" "Toxic masculinity," Keanu repeated slowly, raising an eyebrow. "Joy, I think you're confusing character archetypes with real-world behavior. The characters I play struggle with violence. They don't glorify it. They're forced into situations where they protect the people they care about." "That's exactly what I'm talking about," Joy interrupted, voice rising. "This whole idea that violence is the answer, that men have to be protectors and women need saving, it's outdated. It's harmful." Keanu inhaled, and for the first time, his calm, diplomatic facade started to crack. "Joy, with respect, I don't think you've actually watched these films. You're attacking ideas that aren't even in the movies. You're creating straw man arguments." "Straw man arguments," Joy scoffed, her laugh sharp, condescending. "I've been in this business longer than you've been famous, sweetheart. I know manipulation when I see it. And these movies manipulate young men into thinking violence is heroic." The word "sweetheart" landed like a punch. Keanu's jaw tightened, subtle but unmistakable. "I'm not your sweetheart, Joy, and I'm not manipulating anyone. These are stories about people facing impossible choices. trying to do the right thing even when it costs them everything. Oh, now you're lecturing me about storytelling, Joy shot back, voice dripping with incredulity. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the moment everything changed. What started as a routine interview had morphed into a tense showdown. A live television clash that left viewers around the world stunned and questioning who really controls the narrative behind the cameras. Joy's voice dripped with mock amusement. Let me tell you something about real storytelling. It's about human complexity, not some brooding man with a gun grunting his way through 2 hours of explosions. Human complexity, Keanu repeated slowly, almost deliberately. You mean like reducing an entire career to a caricature without actually engaging with the work? Or dismissing entire genres because they don't fit your narrow idea of what counts as art? For just a moment, Joy's confident smile faltered. I'm not dismissing anything, she said, trying to regain control. I'm asking legitimate questions about the kind of content Hollywood keeps pushing on audiences. No, you're not asking questions, Keanu said, his voice growing stronger, sharper. You're making statements, and then demanding I defend myself against accusations with no basis in reality. You've decided what my movies are about without watching them. You've decided what kind of person I am without knowing me. And now you're upset because I won't play along with your pre-written narrative. The studio audience fell into a tense silence. Even the other hosts exchanged uneasy glances, unsure how to intervene as the exchange escalated. Joy straightened in her chair, clearly surprised by the pushback. I think you're being awfully defensive for someone who claims his movies have depth. If they're so meaningful, why can't you explain that without getting hostile? Hostile? Keanu's voice remained controlled, but steel had entered it now. Joy, you've spent the last 10 minutes insulting my work, my intelligence, my character. You've made assumptions about my motivations, dismissed my responses, and now you're policing my tone because I refuse to accept your disrespect with a smile. That's not journalism. That's bullying. With cameras. The word bullying hit Joy like a physical blow. Her face flushed red. Bullying? Are you seriously going to sit there and accuse me of bullying? I'm doing my job, asking tough questions my audience wants answered. Your audience? Keanu leaned forward slightly, his calmness sharp and dangerous. Or your ego? Because, from where I'm sitting, it seems more like you're interested in proving how clever you are than actually having a conversation. Joy's laugh turned bitter. All pretense of courtesy vanished. Oh, that's rich. The action star is lecturing me about intellectual honesty. Tell me, Keanu, when was the last time you had an original thought not written for you by a team of screenwriters? The insult hung heavy in the air. Keanu remained silent for a long moment, letting it sink in. When he finally spoke, his voice was quieter, but somehow even more commanding. You know what's interesting, Joy? You claim to ask tough questions, but you haven't asked a single genuine one this entire time. You've made statements disguised as questions, created narratives, and demanded I defend against them. I asked you about my career choices, my artistic integrity. Joy shot back, voice rising. No, you've told me my career choices are wrong and that I lack artistic integrity. There's a difference. Keanu's gaze was steady. A question would be, what draws you to action films? Or how do you approach developing these characters? Instead, you've decided I'm some mindless musclehead, corrupting America's youth. And you want me to either admit that or defend myself against something I've never claimed to be. The co-hosts exchanged anxious glances as the tension built, the cameras capturing every electric moment of what had transformed into a live masterclass in calling out media manipulation. I think you're being overly sensitive, Joy said, attempting to regain control. If you can't handle a little criticism, maybe you shouldn't be in the public eye. Criticism, Keanu repeated, each word deliberate, almost dangerous. Is that what you call this? Criticism implies you've actually examined the work you're critiquing. You admit you haven't watched these films, yet you feel confident dismissing them and lecturing me on their societal impact. I don't need to watch every explosion fest to understand the genre, Joy retorted stubbornly. And there it is, Keanu said, leaning back, voice calm but piercing. You don't need to engage with the material to have strong opinions about it. That's the problem. You don't need to understand the themes, the craftsmanship, or the intentions behind the work, Keanu continued, his voice calm but pointed. You can dismiss entire categories of human creative expression simply because they don't appeal to your personal taste. Joy's voice rose, her professional composure cracking. Don't twist my words. I'm talking about responsibility. When you make movies that glorify violence, you have a duty to consider the impact. And when you use your platform to spread uninformed opinions as if they're facts, what's your responsibility then? Keanu leaned forward, eyes steady. When you invite someone on your show just to tear them down for entertainment, what does that teach your audience about how we should treat each other? For a brief moment, Joy was silent, caught off guard. The studio seemed to hold its breath. You talk about influence and responsibility, Keanu went on, but you've spent the last 15 minutes demonstrating exactly the kind of behavior you claim to oppose. Condescending, dismissive, intellectually dishonest. You've made assumptions about me and my work without doing the basic research any professional journalist should do. Wait just a minute, Keanu, Joy shot back, voice sharp. I've been doing this job for decades. I don't need some Hollywood pretty boy telling me how to be a journalist. Hollywood pretty boy, Keanu repeated, almost sadly. You can't engage with my actual arguments, so you resort to personal attacks. You dismiss me based on appearance, profession, and reputation. Do you see what you're doing? You're proving my point about toxic behavior while accusing me of promoting it. Joy's usual sharp wit faltered. I'm not attacking you personally. I'm questioning your choices. Keanu's gaze didn't waver. Calling me sweetheart, questioning my intelligence, dismissing my profession, and now, pretty boy. If that's not personal attacks, what are they? They're observations, Joy snapped. Observations based on what? Keanu pressed. You've admitted you haven't seen my recent work. You haven't researched my background or my approach to filmmaking. Yet you feel qualified to make observations about my character and societal impact. That's not journalism. That's prejudice. The studio was dead silent. Even the crew seemed frozen, unsure whether to cut to commercial or let the moment play out. Joy glanced at her co-hosts for support. They were just as stunned as the audience. I think you're being deliberately difficult and argumentative, Joy said finally, voice tight. Our viewers tune in to see honest conversations, not to watch guests attack the hosts. Keanu's response was sharp and precise. Joy, I haven't attacked you once. I've responded to your attacks on me. I've questioned your methods, pointed out inconsistencies, but I haven't called you names. I haven't dismissed your profession. I haven't made assumptions about your character. The difference is clear to anyone watching. Manipulative, Joy accused weakly, her tone lacking conviction. How am I being manipulative? Keanu asked, leaning in. By defending myself when you attack me? By asking for evidence to support your claims? By pointing out contradictions in your arguments? If that's manipulation, What would you call your behavior over the last 20 minutes? The question hung in the air like a sword. Joy's face cycled through anger, confusion, and embarrassment, settling on a look of almost desperate calculation. She glanced at the teleprompter, then her notes, searching for an escape that didn't exist. I think we need to move on, she said finally, voice strained. Let's talk about your personal life. You've been very private over the years. Some people say that's because you're hiding something. Care to comment? The audacity of the pivot stunned everyone. Keanu stared at her, the studio utterly silent. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of the moment, filling the room. Joy, do you hear yourself right now? You just accused me of being manipulative for defending myself against your attacks, Keanu said, his voice calm but cutting. And your response is to throw an even more personal, baseless accusation. You're suggesting I'm hiding something criminal or shameful simply because I choose to keep my private life private. That's not what I said, Joy protested, but her voice was weak, almost faltering. Exactly what you implied, Keanu continued. You said, some people say, as if that gives you permission to repeat gossip and innuendo without taking responsibility. That's not journalism, Joy. That's tabloid manipulation. Whoopi tried to intervene. Maybe we should take a quick break. No, Keanu interrupted firmly, eyes never leaving Joy. The audience deserves to see how this conversation ends. Joy started this. She should finish it. You wanted a tough conversation about responsibility and influence? Let's have it. Let's talk about the responsibility that comes with your platform. Joy seemed trapped. Every path forward exposed her more. I don't know what you want from me, she said, her voice finally sounding uncertain. I want you to acknowledge what you've done today, Keanu said, calm but unwavering. Admit that you invited me on this show not to have a conversation, but to tear me down for entertainment. Admit that you've spent the last 25 minutes demonstrating the very kind of toxic behavior you claim to oppose. I was doing my job, Joy said, but even she sounded unconvinced. Your job? Keanu asked quietly. Your job is to bully guests, to make unfounded accusations, to attack people personally when they don't respond the way you want. If that's your job, maybe you should consider whether it's worth doing. Joy's face flushed red. You don't get to come on my show and tell me how to do my job. Keanu raised an eyebrow. I thought this was The View, not the Joy Behar Power Trip Hour. I'm not telling you how to do your job. I'm pointing out that what you've been doing today isn't journalism. It's performance art designed to make you feel superior at someone else's expense. That's enough! Joy's voice rose, almost a shout. I don't have to sit here and listen to this. No, you don't, Keanu said, measured but relentless. You could apologize, acknowledge that you've behaved unprofessionally, admit that you made assumptions and attacked me based on those assumptions, not facts. Demonstrate the kind of integrity you claim to value. Joy's mouth opened and closed. She tried to form words, but none came. The silence was deafening, broken only by the hum of the studio and the faint whispers of a stunned audience. Or, Keanu continued, voice gentle but unyielding, you can continue to double down, becoming more hostile when someone calls out your behavior. The choice is yours, Joy. But whatever you choose, everyone watching will see who you really are. The words landed like a physical blow. Joy looked around the studio, at her co-hosts, the cameras, the audience, and realization seemed to dawn. This moment, her exposure, was being broadcast to millions. Her hands shook as she reached for her water. I don't, she started, then stopped. This is ridiculous. I'm not going to sit here and be lectured by someone who makes a living pretending to be other people. There it is again, Keanu said, almost gently. When you can't defend your actions, you attack the person pointing them out. When you can't engage with the substance, you diminish the messenger by dismissing their profession. Do you see the pattern, Joy? Do you understand what you're doing? Suddenly, Joy stood, the chair scraping harshly against the floor. I don't have to tolerate this kind of disrespect on my own show. What disrespect? Keanu asked, calm, unflinching, the tension in the room palpable as the cameras rolled. Keanu remained seated, his voice calm, measured. I haven't called you names. I haven't made assumptions about your character. I've simply held up a mirror and shown you your own behavior. If you find that disrespectful, maybe the problem isn't with the mirror. Joy was backing away from the table, microphone still clipped to her blouse. This interview is over, she said, voice trembling with frustration. The interview was over the moment you decided to attack me instead of having a conversation, Keanu replied, steady and unflinching. I'm just the one with enough self-respect to point it out. Her hands shook as she fumbled with the microphone. Then, in a moment that stunned the entire studio, she declared, I quit. She ripped off the microphone and stormed toward the exit, leaving her co-hosts frozen, mouths agape, unsure how to respond. Keanu stayed seated, his expression a mix of sadness and quiet resolve. As the studio door slammed behind Joy, he turned to the camera, addressing viewers directly. I came here today to talk about a movie, he said softly. Instead, I ended up having a conversation about how we treat each other, about the difference between asking hard questions and attacking people, about the responsibility that comes with any platform, whether it's a talk show or a movie screen. I hope people watching this will think about that difference. The camera lingered on his calm, reflective expression before cutting to a stunned Whoopi, who looked like she was trying to salvage what remained of the show. And that's how one of Hollywood's most private, polite actors created one of daytime television's most dramatic walk-offs, simply by refusing to accept disrespect and having the courage to call it out when it happened. What do you think about Keanu's handling of the situation? Was he right to stand up for himself so forcefully? Or should he have taken the high road and stayed quiet? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more incredible behind-the-scenes stories from Hollywood and beyond.